welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. I'm Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder, and today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. Are you leaking breast milk in between feedings? Now you can collect that milk rather than throw it away in your breast pads. And today's episode is also sponsored by Sheila Darling Coaching. Sheila Darling is a social worker, certified hypnotherapist, and mindfulness meditation teacher, and could be your start to a more peaceful life. And we'll hear more about our sponsors later, but these sponsors make this podcast possible. Please head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check out our sponsor page. Check there and see if you can give them any of your business. That would be awesome. And while you're there, you can scroll down and enter your email address and get these episodes sent straight to your inbox every Monday. I do it myself, so I can assure you that they will be there. Maybe in your spam folder. I don't know, but check there.
Everything goes to the spam folder. Come on.
So annoying.
It is.
Now Dianne has our review of the week.
Yes, it comes off of our iTunes, so thank you so much for putting it there. And it comes from Bama Penn. We are her late night BFFs. And
That's
she
the
says,
best kind.
I know, right? I am on my third nursling and just found your podcast. Baby is now 13 days old. This was a couple months ago. I was blessed with my first child and had a really easy nursing postpartum journey. My second baby was the exact opposite. He cried for the first 6 months of his life. We battled reflux, weight gain, MSPI, which led to a bad case of postpartum anxiety. Going into this new baby, I had all the same worries return. We hadn't even left the hospital before the neonatologist was saying things like reflux, and he has really sensitive skin, so watch for dairy. I've been able to go back and listen to episodes that would have been so valuable during that awful time with my second born that it's giving me reassurance and relief going forward with my third baby. I love listening to the confident, matter-of-fact manner in which you present information that just makes sense. It doesn't hurt that y'all are hilarious and make me laugh out loud. I literally feel better after listening. Thank you so much. I will be sure to share this resource to other mamas. Thank you so much. I've had a lot of people tell me that they listen like while they're up feeding during the night. And I think that's
what
so
else
cool.
can you do?
I know.
Get your little headset out and just listen to stuff, and
I know. It's awesome. Makes the time go by. Well, thank you so much. And we love to get your reviews and hearing your experiences. And this, I think, was great because it shows you how different babies can be from baby to baby. You know, it's like, don't we expect the next one to be just like the first one? And
yeah, I know. It never happens.
Never happens. So that is a great example of that. So thank you so much. And she put that on iTunes, which is really helpful to the podcast. So thank you. Go ahead and put reviews for us on iTunes. We would love it. Or you can send us an email and we will read that too at badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll get those. They usually do not go to the spam folder. So I get them and read them and respond to them. So
yeah, your personal emails don't go to the spam folder, but those email list things do.
Oh, Lordy. So today we're going to talk about baby-friendly hospitals.
Is it baby-friendly or breastfeeding friendly?
Baby-friendly.
Oh, and that means breastfeeding friendly?
Yeah.
All right. That's funny. So what does that mean?
So let's talk about it. This came from the World Health Organization. So from WHO and UNICEF started this worldwide. There is a Baby Friendly USA that handles the hospitals here in the United States, but Baby Friendly as a whole is a worldwide venture, I should say. And there are certain things that you need to do to become a baby-friendly hospital. Like, you can't just be like, okay, we're baby-friendly. Like, there's this whole list of stuff that needs to be done. You have to have people come in and make sure you're doing all the right things before they say, okay, we can designate you as a baby-friendly hospital. There's money involved, of course. But the WHO and UNICEF launched the Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative to help motivate facilities providing maternity and newborn services worldwide to implement the 10 steps to successful breastfeeding. And we're going to talk about those 10 steps so everybody knows what those 10 steps are. But they summarize a package of policies and procedures that facilities providing maternity and newborn services should implement to support breastfeeding. So they call it baby friendly, but it really is supporting the breastfeeding venture.
Well, breastfeeding, chest feeding is baby friendly.
Exactly. Yes.
So.
And a lot of it too is like, I mean, they don't like not talk about the breastfeeding parent through this either. So it is, parent friendly, I guess you could say.
Right. Because most people, the vast majority, the large percentage of people that have babies in hospitals, their goal is to breastfeed.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so, and like in those hospitals, that goal is being supported, while in other hospitals, for example, the one I was in, and probably many of you were in, that does not seem to be the goal.
So it is kind of interesting because I have had people say that they didn't know, obviously what a baby-friendly hospital is. I wouldn't have known, if I didn't work in this field. I wouldn't have known what it was. I wouldn't have known if I was giving birth in one, because they don't really announce it. They're not like, woohoo, we're this baby-friendly hospital. Like, but we have one here right in my area. And honestly, like, I don't know how they keep that designation, but
it doesn't seem very baby friendly.
No, I mean, the things that you have to follow, like the breastfeeding parents that come out of there that I end up seeing, like, it doesn't. I'm like, wow, that's not very baby friendly activity going on there. It's just it's weird. In the United States, about a quarter, almost 30%, but hovering between like 25 and 30% of the babies in the United States are born at baby-friendly hospitals. We have like 600 here or something like that in the United States. Worldwide, they do way better with it.
Oh, yeah. Worldwide. Well, because they follow the WHO, the code of like formula marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
which that alone would change the nature of hospitals across the board if we did that, but we would never do that because our goal is capitalism.
And that really is what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to, always.
Yeah. So worldwide, there's more than 20,000 maternity facilities in 150 countries around the world. Here in the United States, we have like, I think, like I said, like 600. Like a quarter of our babies are born in baby-friendly hospitals here. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So I was going to start talking about the steps, but what were you going to say?
I was actually probably going to lead. My question was probably going to lead into that. I imagine that the steps or first of all, I feel like this is so backwards. Like I feel like the government should be making hospitals do this. Instead it's reversed. Hospitals are fighting for this, and they're for this designation, right? This baby-friendly designation or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the government should be making hospitals follow these rules, right?
Right.
But what we're doing is we actually push the formula into hospitals. And so I imagine these steps are kind of trying to push back on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they absolutely. So
what a ridiculous situation. I'm sorry. This makes me so angry. This is so ridiculous. Go ahead.
And I don't even know if I should get into this before or after I talk about the 10 steps, but there are a lot of entities that do not believe in this. They don't think that it works. They're like, this doesn't really work. This isn't beneficial. The people from like Fed is Best.
Uh-huh.
What is that? Fed, whatever.
The Fed is Best Foundation or campaign or whatever they call it.
I think the person that started that, who had a very negative breastfeeding experience, which is why they started that group, was a baby-friendly hospital and felt like she was just pushed into everything and nobody suggested any other kind of support for her. So people are saying like, and I think it really depends on the hospital, obviously. Everything depends on the hospital. Everything depends on the people that you are dealing with within that hospital.
And even huge and even larger is like our society at large doesn't believe in breastfeeding. We don't see it. We don't understand it to be like the biological norm. So of course it's like, some people are just like, well, wait a minute, why am I being forced into this?
Right. But there are several steps to baby friendly. It's not just encourage breastfeeding. Like there's several steps
right. There's
here.
all kinds of, sure.
So it's like, if you're looking at these steps and you're implementing these steps, even hospitals that are not baby friendly, if you are at least implementing some of these steps, you're going to do better with breastfeeding statistics in your hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So if people are looking to be like, okay, I know my hospital's not going to go baby friendly, like the one that I used to work at, I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if we were baby friendly. And they're like, yeah, that's never going to happen here. Because you know why? In baby friendly, one of the steps is that the hospitals cannot accept free formula. They have to purchase it.
They shouldn't even be allowed to, the formula company shouldn't be allowed to give it. They shouldn't be allowed to accept it at all.
But that is part of our thing here, whereas in other countries, it's not like that.
Right. They don't, they just follow the WHO.
Exactly. They follow the WHO. Here, we don't do that. Here, the formula that you're getting in the hospital is donated by the formula companies, or very, 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 very cheap. I don't even know. But
yeah, along with, lots of money and lots of steak dinners and lots of other incentives to push their product.
There's a lot of incentives there. So if you become baby friendly, you have to agree to not accept that.
Mm-hmm.
And you have
Which, by the way, shouldn't be up to the hospital. It should just be a government thing that you're not allowed, the companies aren't allowed to do that.
Right.
And I'll go on to say, before somebody says that I'm like anti-formula, if you do want formula, it should be free.
Right.
For you, you shouldn't have to be paying for it. That's what I think.
These hospitals, they do have formula. It's just that they just have to purchase it. They have to purchase it at a, whatever rate that they're purchasing it at. So they're not going to be as free to give it away.
Right. That just makes them like a little bit more like, okay, well, we're going to use this as needed, not as just a general push onto everybody.
They're supposed to be using that money to train their employees so that everybody is trained in breastfeeding, and they're supposed to be implementing breastfeeding policies so that if someone says, I think I need formula, they have somebody that can help with that.
Mm-hmm.
Or instead of saying, oh, your baby seems really hungry, we're just going to give them formula. Like if the mother requests it, they're supposed to give it if the mother requests it in a baby friendly hospital. But they're not supposed to just automatically say, oh, your baby's cluster feeding, they must be starving, let's give them some formula. They can't do that there. At least they're not supposed to, because it's,
right.
They're not as open to giving it away.
Right.
So step number 1 of these 10 steps to better breastfeeding is hospital policies and supporting mothers and breastfeeding parents. So that is not promoting formula, making breast and chest feeding care standard practice, and keeping track of support for breast and chest feeding. That is number 1. So they're supposed to have everybody, in that hospital, on the maternity floor, everybody everywhere is supposed to be supportive of breastfeeding.
Okay. Sounds good.
Right. Even the person that comes in to sweep your floor is supposed to be supportive. All the people.
Oh, they could probably just not say anything.
You would think, right?
You could probably just stay out of my business if you're sweeping the floor.
When I was working in the hospital, we had this one, they did the hearing test. They come in and they do the little hearing test on the babies. And she was like overly breastfeeding friendly. And she would be like, oh, I helped that mom in room whatever. And I'm like, you can't just do that. Like, you're there to check the freaking hearing on the baby.
Yeah,
you can't,
that sounds a little like that's getting into a little cultish there with like everybody's like, oh, you're breastfeeding? Oh, that's so wonderful. I'm so supportive of that.
Let me help you.
Sweep.
I know.
No.
It's
I
creepy.
don't know. Yeah,
so the next one is number 2 is staff competency. Hospitals supporting parents to breast and chest feed by training staff.
That would be good.
And assessing health workers' knowledge and skills. So there is specific trainings that have been put together and organized for staff members. Unfortunately, they just do a lot of it online because they're like, oh, here, you need this so many hours of training. So just do it online when you get a chance, because hospital staff doesn't tend to be able to go to trainings. They need them on the floor, which is another problem.
Yeah.
They don't have enough staff to let people get trained. So a lot of times when we wanted to go to conferences or, trainings and, cool things like that, they either wouldn't support it financially for us because they were like, no, we can't afford to send you to this. If you want to do it, you have to do it on your own, at your own cost. Or they would be like, we can't give you the time off for that. So it's very frustrating.
That's ridiculous.
So this is something that like getting staff trained is a big deal, but they need to
Let's just keep the staff uninformed. Like, I mean, that's really great for a formula company's initiative, like for their bottom line. Like that's really a great way to do it.
Right. So it's, really, it's unfortunate. I think within the past year, because of so many trainings being on Zoom and everything, I hope a lot of people have been able to take advantage of that and do more trainings. But it's never the same, when you can do in-person training and you can ask questions. It's just, it's never the same. But there is something called the 20-hour training for the Breastfeeding Friendly Hospital Initiative. And I am actually trained to do that training. So I've done it for, for different staff members, for different groups in the past, because it's 20 hours of training. So it can also help to renew, like certified lactation counselors need to renew their certification every couple of years. So it would renew that. But, even offer, it's like, I'm the only person in our area that can do that training.
Yeah.
And even if I would like put it out and offer it, like hospitals would never send their staff, like if people went, it was because they wanted to on their own. They wanted to get that information on their own. So It's really unfortunate. It's like, you know what? I could train all your staff and you guys are just declining it, which is really sad.
Yep, because breastfeeding is not a priority.
Exactly. So number 3 is antenatal care. Hospitals support breastfeeding parents to breastfeed by discussing the importance of breastfeeding and chest feeding for babies and parents, and preparing families in how to feed their baby. So this is going right into OB care and midwifery care. This is stuff that should be talked about prenatal. They should be taking a few minutes in each appointment to be talking about breastfeeding.
Yeah. Or feeding choices, just like going over your feeding choices. Like I never had that.
Right. Exactly.
They never mentioned it once.
It's like when you get to the hospital, they say, oh, what do you want to do? Breastfeed or formula feed?
Yeah. Like, oh, what are you doing? Oh.
And they just
like, I would say even with my OBGYN experience and my midwife experience, we didn't really speak about that.
Yeah. And they really should be. It's something that should be coming up.
Should we continue after a break from our sponsors?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. The original Milk Saver is designed to wear on the opposite breast while breastfeeding, but sometimes we're leaking in between feedings when we're on the go or at work. The Milky's Milk Saver on the go is a discreet and comfortable breast milk collection system that requires 0 effort on your part. You simply slip them into your bra while your milk collects inside them. When you are ready, you empty them. When you're ready to empty them, you pour the milk collected into a storage bag to add to your stash or to use for any of the dozens of uses for breast milk. They cannot be seen under your clothes. They are small enough to carry in your purse and reusable. These can also be used to protect sore or cracked nipples while they heal, as they create a small opening and protect the area around your nipples. Save your precious breast milk, money, and the environment by cutting down or even eliminating the use of breast pads. Breast milk is worth saving. Check out the Milky's Milk Saver on the go at fairhavenhealth.com. That's FAIRHAVEN health.com. And use promo code BADASS for 15% off of your purchase there. And this episode is also sponsored by Sheila Darling Coaching. The transition to parenthood can be intense. Feelings of anxiety and depression are actually quite common. Your feelings should not be ignored. You deserve space where you can process this transition and all of the emotional and psychological changes that come with it. You may hear people telling you to just enjoy it, or it all goes by so fast. These statements are dismissive of the changes we're going through when we have a new baby. Transitioning to a new family member isn't always the peaceful journey we see on TV. Sheila Darling Coaching can be that professional support person that Dianne and I are always saying there is no shame in getting. Sheila Darling is a social worker, certified hypnotherapist, and mindfulness meditation teacher, and could be your start to a more peaceful life. Head to SheilaDarling.com to schedule your consultation today. And mention this podcast and get 10% off of a coaching package. These sponsors and their promo codes can be found in our show notes under this episode at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. Our show notes will also include further information about things we talk about in this episode. And at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, you'll also find our breastfeeding resources, all of our other episodes, and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne. And this week's shout out. This week's shout out goes to Melanated Midwives. Melanated Midwives, you can find them on Instagram, and they say that more Black, Indigenous, and people of color midwives are needed. Melanated Midwives provides financial support through 3 $5,000 scholarships annually to student midwives that identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. So head to, you can go to melanatedmidwives.org and find out more information about that. But that is, I love that initiative, and check it out. If you identify as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color, you could be qualify for one of these scholarships and enrich the midwifery profession.
That's amazing.
I know.
They do that. I love it.
And that's all I've got.
It's all.
What number are we on?
We are on number 4. Yes. Number 4 is care right after birth, which is basically encouraging that skin to skin contact right away after birth. If both parent and baby are healthy and everything is perfect. And to help that breastfeeding parent breastfeed her baby right after birth. You know, like within that first hour, we want those babies to be skin to skin. We want the baby to go and be able to feed pretty quickly, not because they're starving, but because that's what they do. And that is number 4, is that skin to skin contact right after. And that is something that really has taken off. I feel like that happens pretty much around the board. I haven't heard from anybody recently, from like the messages and stuff like that we get from around the country and around the world, that they don't get that skin to skin time. So hopefully except
maybe after like a C-section or something.
Yeah. And that's even becoming a little bit more.
Yeah, they're getting better with that.
They are getting better with that. So hopefully that'll continue to grow, and it'll be just a normal thing after C-sections too. Number 5, supporting mothers and breastfeeding parents with breast and chest feeding. Hospitals support breastfeeding parents to breast and chest feed by checking position and attachment, making sure that they're sucking, giving practical support and advice, helping mothers and breastfeeding parents with common breast and chest feeding problems. So pain, concerns, is my baby getting enough? Are they doing okay? And really, somebody should be taking the time to teach you these things and to sit with you and make sure that you know what you're looking for. And this is kind of where it comes in, where I find a lot of discrepancy, even with the baby-friendly hospitals, is that you find that there's a lot of misinformation or a lot of confusing information. You know, like maybe your nurse on day 1 came and told you A, B, and C. And then the nurse that you saw overnight told you something completely different. And then the next nurse the next day said, no, don't listen to them. This is what I want you to do. I hear this all the time.
Yes. I remember experiencing that.
And they should be on the same page.
And then they're like talk about each other.
Yeah.
You know, they would just be like, she's so annoying. She just does this and this and this. And no, that's not right. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do it like this. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm in the peds office, the parents are like, we just wanted to get here because we knew you would be here and we could work with one person, you know, because we heard so many different things. And I hear that from people that deliver everywhere.
Yeah, yep.
It is such a common problem.
And that could be helped with like the training part.
Exactly. And everybody's on the same page if there's consistency to the training. But one of the big problems is you have people that have their own experiences and they want you to live through their experience, which we don't do that for any other aspect of healthcare.
No, I know. It's so true. Everybody really just starts putting in their 2 cents when it comes to babies. It's insane. It starts with pregnancy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. So getting the support that you need, they really should be helping. One of the other things that I hear a lot too from families is that either they get too much information and they're inundated with a lot of conflicting information, or they don't get that much at all. So they're like, the staff came in and they were like, oh my gosh, you haven't fed the baby. It's been 6 hours. And the breastfeeding parent said, well, I didn't know I was supposed to wake up the baby.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was what I was supposed to be doing. Like, well, yes, of course you have to wake up the baby to feed the baby. How are you supposed to know that?
Yeah, how do you know? Yeah.
It's your first baby. You're probably exhausted from birthing.
Yeah, and everyone keeps coming in to wake up the baby, to poke them and prod them and twist them and hang them upside down. And you're like, oh my God, this baby's just trying to sleep.
I know. You don't want to wake them up.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's either one or the other. Either they act like you're supposed to know all the things, which you're not, by the way, you're not supposed to know all the things, or they tell you too many things. So it's very frustrating. Number 6 is supplementing. Hospitals support breastfeeding parents to breast and chest feed by giving only breast milk unless there are medical reasons, prioritizing donor human milk when a supplement is needed, helping breastfeeding parents who want to formula feed to do so safely. So nowhere on this list is to deny a parent formula if they're requesting it. That is not on this list.
Yeah, you're right.
It is, we want you to do it safely, which means not overfeeding with formula, which is really easy to do. Paced bottle feeding, which is better for babies. I think we have an episode on that. Kind of teaching them how to do that.
And not pushing it on you against your will.
Exactly. Not pushing it on you.
That's mostly what happens.
Yeah. So this is what we have for supplementing. There was a mom that I did a virtual consult with. She is in San Francisco, I think. Yeah, it was San Francisco. And the hospital that she gave birth in, they had human milk for supplementing. And
that's awesome.
And it wasn't like, because here they do that, they do it in the NICU here, in our NICU in Rochester where I am, but only there, like your baby has to be like a certain so many weeks early, and it has to be, like it really, there's like all these little rules to it. But this hospital, this was just your average everyday, full term baby that I don't remember if it was a jaundice or a blood sugar issue, and they supplemented with human milk. Just like, okay, we're just going to give your baby human milk for supplementing with. Like, that is fantastic. That is an amazing thing to be doing really in your hospital. And I have never heard of that as just to be just like, oh yeah, we supplemented with human milk. And then you know what those parents did when they went home? They got the same human milk for supplementing. So they continued that on at home until her supply was established, instead of just going to formula, because that's what the formula companies want. They want you to start off with their formula in the hospital. So that's what you're going to continue with when you go home. Yeah. And that's what they did with human milk. So that baby never had to have the formula, which was amazing. So and like I mentioned before, with Baby Friendly, you have to agree to not accept these things, to not accept formula. So they're really supposed to be more supportive of having babies breastfeed. Rooming in, this is another thing that is on the list, and hospitals are supporting breastfeeding mothers by letting them stay together day and night, making sure that mothers of sick babies can stay near their babies. This was one of the complaints. I read an article about people that were complaining about Baby Friendly and delivering at a Baby Friendly hospital, and this was one of the complaints. They wouldn't take my baby. Hospitals, a lot of hospitals don't have nurseries anymore. They just don't have it. They don't have the staff to support a nursery. They just don't have it. Yeah. So they encourage you to room in. And there are some parents that really don't want to do that, or they feel uncomfortable rooming in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really important to room in. It really is.
It is.
For
Just
your baby's
staying in
sake.
the same environment, staying exposed to the same.
Yeah, you want to see their
things.
cues, you want to learn them. And research that has been done about rooming in has shown that parents are more confident when they room in with their babies, going home with that baby, because they've been watching their cues. They've been listening to them. They've been responding right away when they cry.
Yeah. I remember being in the hospital with Jack, and the nurse, the one main nurse who I can't remember right now, I remember her coffee breath all the time, but she was so amazing. And we sent her flowers afterwards. She helped us breastfeed and all that. I mean, they also gave us formula and tried to ruin everything, but it wasn't really her fault. I remember shortly after delivery, sitting there, with Jack sleeping in the little box that they sleep in next to the bed. And I was so exhausted. And she was like, do you want me to take him? She was like, I can take him for a little while so you can rest. I'll hold him. I'll take him. I'll take care of him. And it just freaked me out. I was like, no, it's okay. Just leave him here. But she was like, I think that there are people who are and you have depending on how many drugs you had during, sometimes people need a minute to recover from the birth experience.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to have a nurse that could, what would be even amazing is if the nurses could do wrap the babies and do skin to skin while they do their rounds.
I know, that would be awesome.
Just putting them in there and kind of just you have one on the front, one on the back. I don't know.
I know.
We could never do that here because of the liability and all this. Oh my God. And it would never happen. But that would be great.
It would be. Yeah. It would be great.
But yeah, I mean, I was too uncomfortable with it. But I can see somebody being like, I just need to sleep for a few hours. Sleep this off. You need to sleep off the hangover.
I know. And that's how I was with the twins.
Yeah.
And I was by myself because we had a 2-year-old at home. So my ex-husband went home to be with our son, obviously, and I had a C-section.
Yeah.
It was really hard to get up and down and move around, and I needed that extra help. So they really should be if it works, and this is kind of how it is, if it works, and the hospital that I worked in, we didn't have a nursery, but they did have nurses that would take the baby for a couple hours if necessary. A nurse would always offer to do that, and just kind of keep the baby close with them while they did their charting or whatever. But when I had Nathan in an Army hospital, and this was 20 years ago before they were really doing rooming in, they were I was like, do you take him? And they're like, no, unless there's something wrong with him, but there's nothing wrong with him. He stays with you. And I was like, okay. I mean, I was in the Army. We didn't argue with that. We were just okay, but they didn't, they were like, nope, he stays with you. He does not leave you unless there is a medical reason why. And I said, okay. And that was it. Number 8.
It's so funny that you asked though.
I know.
Because we still have this this thing with authority, hospital people being the authority. Do you take my baby?
And I didn't know.
Are you going to I know. Nobody knows.
Right? I had no idea.
Nobody has any idea. And then it's just are you going to take my baby? Are you supposed to take my baby?
Is he keeping staying with me?
Where do you, do I keep my baby or do you keep my baby? What a weird ass situation we are in this country.
It is so weird. Number 8, responsive feeding. And all this means is that they are supposed to help you to recognize when your baby is hungry and help you to understand that there shouldn't be any limits on breastfeeding. And I have yet to meet somebody who said, at the hospital, they told me to just let the baby feed whenever they want.
I know. There's always some numbers and rules around it.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll hear them say, no, definitely just keep putting the baby back on. But it depends on who you are with. It's not very common that you'll hear that. You usually hear the numbers and the rules and the regulations. But they're supposed to be working with you to say, okay, see what your baby's doing right now. This means that they're hungry. Let's put them back to breast again. That's, they're supposed to be teaching you these things and helping you with this. 9, this is another one that pisses people off sometimes. No bottles, teats, pacifiers. So the hospitals here, like I said, there's only one baby-friendly one, but none of them give pacifiers. Unless it's
my God. They could not. They're obsessed with putting a pacifier in Jack's mouth. I kept throwing it in the garbage, and then another one would appear. It was just this magical pacifier thing that kept happening. And I'm like, he doesn't need that. And they're, pop. They just
pop it
kept
out.
putting them in their his mouth.
my
I was like, oh my
God.
God, how many of these do you have?
I know, right? They come out of the woodwork. But like people would ask at the hospital I worked at, they'd be like, can I have a pacifier? We're like, we don't have them. Like we literally didn't have them. Special
Just put
care
'em on your boob.
nurseries would have them because if babies were like, under lights or something like that, they had to soothe them somehow. So they would give them a pacifier.
Mhm.
But if you just had your baby with you, they didn't. So people would just bring their own. So it's like, okay, if you wanted to have your baby to have a pacifier, bring one because they're not going to give them one at the hospital. But they're supposed to be kind of like, counseling on the risks of that, making sure your baby's feeding cues because you don't want to be plugging them in with a pacifier if they're really hungry. You want to feed them.
Mhm.
So that is one of the things. That is one of the steps. And like I said, it pisses people off because they want their babies to have a pacifier. And people are like, sorry, can't help you in a baby-friendly hospital.
Right.
And at discharge, they're supposed to be referring you to community supports and working with communities to improve the breast and chest feeding supports that are in their area.
LOL.
Right. So, but that is something that is part of the 10 steps is making sure that parents are being discharged with information of where they can get help if they need it. And that is important.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know were you given any information?
No, I was given any information at all.
Yeah.
They just took me to the door and they were like, bye.
With all your formula.
Right. With our big giant bag of formula and the baby that I didn't know how to take care of.
Right.
Bye.
So basically, so those are the 10 steps. So there are hospitals that will, that will be doing some of these steps automatically. They're doing skin to skin. They're doing rooming in. They're doing no pacifiers. But it's maybe not all the 10 steps because they're not a baby-friendly hospital because they still have the formula there. So that should be, though, that even if you can do some of these steps, that should be supportive of breast and chest feeding for parents.
Yeah. Those are good steps.
They are. But if you are delivering in a baby-friendly hospital, then, you should be expecting this kind of care. That's what that means. You're delivering in a breastfeeding baby-friendly hospital. You should be expecting care to support you and your new baby.
Yeah. And how can you find out if a hospital is baby-friendly?
You could just Google it. Google the hospital that you're planning to deliver in.
Or like baby-friendly hospitals in my area or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks, Diane. That was very informative.
Well,
that's what you're here for.
That's what I'm here for. I know. I was trying to think of some sassy response.
I know.
And nothing was coming.
I spend most of my day trying to think of a sassy response. It's like mostly like dead silence for a few seconds. And people are like, oh, she's trying to think of something smart ass to say.
Yeah. I'm just not quick like that.
I know. I used to be
morning.
quicker, but just give me a few seconds and something smart ass will come out.
I know, exactly. Oh my God.
Well, thanks for listening.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.